Aloha and welcome to Your Heart Magic, an illuminating space where psychology, spirituality and heart wisdom meet. Here's your host, Dr. BethAnne Kapansky-Wright, the clinical psychologist with a mystic mind.
Aloha, everybody. This is Dr. BethAnne Kapansky-Wright, and welcome to Your Heart Magic. We are going Akashic today. We are talking about energy. We are talking about the Akashic Records, and today's episode is focused on what is the energy right now? How can we best navigate it? And why is it even important to think about these kinds of things? So this is the Akashic Energy Roundup for February of 2024. And something that I do in my work that many might be familiar with, but some of you who might be new to this podcast might not know, is that I have been working with the Akashic Records for probably about a decade now to varying degrees. And about 3 years ago, actually not about 3 years ago, it was exactly 3 years ago that I felt really called to take my work with the records and to shift it in a way where I was less focused on looking at individuals' records and getting specific guidance for individuals. I still do that, but I felt more called to shift it into looking at records for the collective. And so part of what I did with that is I already had a free monthly newsletter that was intuitively based with some writing prompts and self-care. And I shifted it and introduced something called Akashic Magic. And Akashic Magic is a little newsletter that I send out for free every month with an energy update. And I go into the Akashic Records before the month begins and audio record a message where I will usually get some information on what's the energy this month, how do we best navigate it, how might the energy show up for us, and then is there any guidance that the records have for us at this particular point in time. And I just celebrated the 3rd year anniversary. I guess Akashic Magic just turned 3. We are moving into our 4th year around the sun. I launched it in February of 2021. So it's really fun to be sitting here 3 years later and to have added Your Heart Magic as another offering that I have felt called to create and be able to weave that work into this podcast as well. The Akashic Records have been so invaluable to me throughout the years, and they are a beautiful way to tap into the spiritual energy and some of the cosmic energies and some of the shifts in the collective that are happening for all of us, and figure out what might we expect as we move into a new month? What might be some themes that are coming up, and how might we work with those energies? And one of my favorite things about the records is that they are very practical. The guidance is always really loving. Whenever I'm doing a reading for an individual, whenever I'm working with records for the collective, even if the guidance is like hard truth or something that is not our favorite thing to hear, it's always wrapped in so much love. It's always given to us in a way that supports us in feeling empowered to move on our individual journeys, recognizing that we are soulful beings having this human experience, and that we are part of this greater web of light, part of this greater web of humanity, and we're part of many cycles and many soul plans that are converging as we all live our lives out here on planet Earth, and also seek to open up and stay connected to our spiritual guidance. So I love how practical the records are, and there is probably some bias there on my part that because I have that point of view, when I am receiving messages for the records, I am looking for what is practical, what is grounded, how can we take this and apply it to our daily lives? How can we live with a little bit more peace and ease? And how can we learn to hold our space of center and continue to expand and grow perspectives so that as life's waves come along, we feel better equipped to ride them. Speaking of life's waves, before I hopped on to make the podcast today, I actually tuned into the energy for this upcoming week, actually the next couple weeks. And the theme that came through was Ride the Waves. And it feels like the energy is going to continue to be really mixed over the next few weeks. That feels like there will be big things happening, small things happening, maybe a juxtaposition of good things and not so good things happening at the same time. Like, what else is new, right? This has kind of been, I mean, this is life, and this is sort of how life is. But I had this sense of each of us riding the waves and being in the water and perhaps being aware of what is coming towards us, but not particularly looking around. We're not cloud gazing. We are really focused on what's right in front of us. And so that feels like a really nice way to drop into the energy of this month. And the bigger energy for the month of February of 2024, when I opened the records, was energy boost. And it does feel like there are moments of vitality and moments of big energy that are going to be available to us this month. And this will show up in different ways based on who we are and where we're at in our individual journey. But you might expect things like having an epiphany or having a breakthrough, or like you've been feeling stuck in something and all of a sudden you feel really equipped to burst forward on the path, or you see with clarity what the next step is. It could just feel like a really good energetic dust off where things have been feeling heavy and you have a sense of reinvigoration. But when I open the records for February, I kept seeing things like a fresh breeze coming through and moving stagnant air in an otherwise still room. I was seeing like a big orange being somebody taking a bite out of an orange, and it's like a hot day. They're in need of refreshment, and it just hits the spot. And like every image felt like something that felt reinvigorating. It felt rejuvenating. It felt like a breath of fresh air, a needed shot of vitamin C for our heart and our soul and our minds. So there's some nice, bright energy that is available to us this upcoming month. And to put this in a bigger context, the Akashic Records name the year 2024 the Anchoring of the Light. And this is a build on the theme that they gave us for the year 2023, which is the evolution of the light. So I find it best to understand these messages as the records themselves telling us a story. And the story is being told through metaphor and images and guidance around the energy, but it's building on each other. And it's not uncommon when I am bringing these messages through that the records will reference something that happened the previous month or help put a context around what we're experiencing now. And so 2023 was filled with a lot of movement for a lot of people. And for some people, that was literal movement where they changed jobs or relationships, or they moved locations, or there was some sort of radical change in the external circumstances in their life. And for others, it might have been more internal, where you felt like you exited the year 2023 in a really different place than when you entered the year 2023. And probably for many of us, it was a mix of some of it was inner and some of it was outer, and all of those things added up to help us feel like we were ending the last year in a different place than where we began the year. And evolution is about change. It's about growth. It can be about a lot of spontaneity or something happening that is really for the greater good. Something needs to give in order for a system to evolve in the way that it needs to. And yet sometimes there can be that tower energy. For those who are familiar with the tarot, you know what the tower is. For those who aren't as familiar, the tower card always signifies major shakeups, major changes, something that can feel really disruptive. Sometimes it can feel a little catastrophic or really big to us. And yet, ultimately, it is a card that represents things being shaken up and rearranged in order to be reordered in a way that is moving us in the direction of highest growth in a way that is for the greater good. So that was the evolution of the light. And the anchoring of the light feels like it's building on that theme. It's almost like things evolved to this new space that they needed to. And now things are going to settle in a little bit. And there might be some growing pains that are involved with that. And there might be a little bit like when a house has just been built and there's been a flurry of activity around the house and around evolving this housing project and getting everything in place. And this house has now been firmly built. It is where it's going to be, right? The house itself is not going to be picked up and relocated. It has been built, it has a good foundation, and maybe you move into this house that you've had built. But there are some growing pains involved. Maybe there is a settling in of the joints of the home. Maybe you realize that some of the things that were systems that were put in place, maybe it was like the plumbing or the electricity or something that happened. You've been there a month or two and realized that it wasn't wired correctly and it needs to have somebody come back in and look at it, or you have a leak or something like that and realize that there's a little bit of tending and detail orientation that has to take place. Or you see there's a crack in the wall and think, oh my gosh, this is a brand new place. What happened here? And it's like the foundation's fine, but maybe the drywall or whatever that was put up kind of as it creaked and settled in, developed a little bit of a hairline fracture, and it just needs a little bit of TLC and paint. And that was kind of a metaphor for the energy that I'm feeling for the year 2024, that a lot of the big shifts that were happening, at least for us individually, have happened for us, or the energetic grid work, the foundation's been laid, and now things are settling in and anchoring in, and we're starting to see those areas that we can fine tune. We're seeing the things that aren't quite aligned and they need a little bit of TLC. Maybe for some of us, the house is doing great, and now we're like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out how to move into this space, and I don't have some of the furnishings I need, and I don't have some of these things. There's a lot of fun directions that we could take this metaphor, but I think a lot of it is the idea that right now there might be some energies of grounding, readjustment, recalibration, and understanding what is this new space about that we find ourselves in. And the records gave the guidance in January of 2024. They named the theme of that month Lay of the Land. And it was really about surveying the land and sort of having a sense that you are in this new space, like, welcome, welcome. But before you kind of plunge into the new territory and haven't taken any time to map out, what do you need? What supplies might you want? Take a little bit of space and just survey the land, survey where you're at, take inventory. It was interesting because that message intersected with Capricorn season. And though the records are not astrology, I do find sometimes that they will reference astrological transits. And that might be because I follow astrology. I really enjoy it. I think it supplements this work beautifully. I am all in when it comes to gathering sources of metaphysical and energetic information and kind of getting a sense of like, what does astrology say about the month ahead? What do the Akashic Records say about the month ahead? If I follow somebody who has spiritual offerings around angel messages, or maybe they do an intuitive reading for the month ahead or something like that, I love to bring all of that together and look at what are the common themes, what might the differences be, is there anything that multiple light workers are tapping into with their various gifts. And they are kind of seeing the same thing from many different perspectives. I find that fascinating. And I think it's a really fun way to study energy and to learn more about some of the different philosophies and spiritual ideologies that are out there. I think it's a great way to practice discernment and to see what resonates with us and to see what doesn't resonate with us. And I think it's a really good way to work on our personal development and look at how might these messages apply to me, and are there ways that my individual journey differs from a collective message because it's my journey. Maybe I'm just in a different season in life right now, so some of those things don't match up. I find that there's a lot of growth that I can take from them. And I really do enjoy, though, astrology. And so something that I've noticed with the records, and it might be because I'm cluing into astrology as well, is that they will sometimes reference something big coming up, like a certain moon or eclipse season or something like that. And often, if I go and look at the collective message for the month ahead, which I never tap into with the idea that it has to match whatever astrological season we're in. But a lot of times I will see where it really kind of matches the astrological season that we're in. So I thought it was interesting that in January they talked about surveying the land, gathering resources, being organized, kind of having a plan of what do you need to move forward this year, sort of mapping out a strategy. And they also gave us the guidance to be patient with the process. And it was during Capricorn season, which tends to be a very structured energy. And the zodiac, Capricorn's the builder, and Capricorn is about doing it right and not shortcutting things, and hard work and perseverance, and just continuing to show up and give a consistency with efforts. So I thought that was kind of fun because to me, there was a nice echo between those two things. And the records did say to have patience with our process for January. So if you had a slow January, or you felt like it didn't go the way that you wanted it to, or you had hoped that you would like hit the ground running in 2024, and instead, like you hit the ground and felt like you took a nap instead, or felt like you kind of stagnant, or just aren't where you want to be, it's all good. It's all good. It's all part of the process. It is all part of just giving ourselves grace. And it's all part of allowing ourselves to ride the waves of the energy and work with what is presenting itself to us instead of forcing ourselves to move at a pace that doesn't feel in rhythm with where our life is at this time. Having said that, February felt like such a big shift, and it felt like there was a lot more room for movement this month. It felt like there was more inspiration. It felt like if you had a feeling in January, like maybe you had to force yourself to do something or really apply a lot of effort, February felt like there was going to be more moments of just naturally stepping into wanting to do something, having the motivation to do it. Again, I'm seeing those bright citrus fruits and that idea of just having like a big boost of vitamins that really gives us a bit of turbo fuel. One of the things that the Akashic did say was that energy is available this month. It won't necessarily feel like that the entire month. And so my caveat around that is my understanding from the records is that there's going to be like punctuations of this bright energy, and it might feel like there's spurts of it, but some of that might be very interspersed with just normal day-to-day stuff or energy that feels mixed or still feels really slow. So again, patience with the process. Something that the record said, and I loved this, is that there is a lot of space this month when we do our meditation work or we take a little bit of time for a mindfulness practice or a reflection practice. There's going to be a lot of space for connecting with our heart and connecting with the bigger vision in our life right now, or whatever our heart has for a vision for our life. And again, this will differ for each of us. For some of us, it might be some grand plan that we've been working on, and it's all coming together and we're trying to move something big. And for others of us, it might be, what do I want this season in life to look like? But the way this presented itself in the records, and they often give metaphors and I will see a lot of images and have a lot of sensations, and it's a lot of similes. Like, it's going to be like this, and then they'll give me an example of what it's going to be like. And what I saw was being able to go to a beautiful place in nature that's not accessed by a lot of people. Maybe you take a trail to go there if these places exist, but it's not one that you go to and there's like 30 other people when you finally get to like the creek at the end and they're all chilling out and eating lunch. It's a trail that not everybody accesses. And so you're able to get out, you're able to have space, you're able to be by yourself, to be in your thoughts. You show up, maybe there's a clear mountain stream or glacier water or just something really pristine and beautiful. And you sit down and you just fill your lungs with that beautiful, pristine, fresh mountain air that's really untouched by noise, by devices, by having lots of people. Nobody's there. They're not talking on cell phones. There's not Wi-Fi up there. There's not all this kind of chatter and buzz that sometimes comes when we tune into the mass consciousness of the internet and online world and news cycles. And I think of it almost like the pollution in the collective, where everybody's mental chatter and sort of this constant need for activity and motion that's constantly churning and sort of churning up dust is going. It's clear there, and that doesn't exist. And so you're able to more easily tap into what's real, what's sacred to you, what's authentic to you. You're more easily able to get into your heart wisdom. You are easily able to receive from nature, receive from the energy around you. It helps you not only take a layer of energetic debris off, but it helps you really just get in touch with anything going on in your life and access higher guidance for it. And you realize as you leave this space that you feel clearer, you feel brighter, you feel a little bit more equipped to move forward on your path. You feel reinvigorated so that you can go back into your family or your job or whatever it is. And you feel like just a little bit of kind of the better version of yourself. And that is what's available to us this month. It might not be every single second. We might have to carve out space for it, just like that example of going hiking and taking a little bit of time to get to it, to access it. We might need to set aside the time for meditation or for mindfulness. We might need to go to nature, or if nature's not available to you, to go to a sound bath or listen to something that brings that beautiful music in. There's always a way, no matter where we are, to try and carve out sacred space. So be creative and work with what you have and work with what's available in your environment. But I feel like there's big gains to be had this month by doing those small things where we are intentional about carving out space. And again, what I felt from that was the same feeling that we saw in that picture that the Akashic gave us of the person who just kind of fills their lungs with clean mountain air, and they feel brighter, they feel invigorated, and they feel a little bit more equipped to go back and to sort of join their normal stream of consciousness in their daily life. So I am looking forward to that this month and looking forward to tapping into it. And this month is Aquarius season. We are in Aquarius season right now. And Aquarius is the visionary. Aquarius is about innovation. It can be on a more of a collective level about technological advancement. It's often about things moving in a way that helps evolve something in the collective forwards. But Aquarius is a very out of the box thinker, a little bit of a heart rebel. I like the bigger energies for all of us, and that is tapping into the idea of being a visionary, being innovative, thinking, how can I think outside of the box in my own life if I feel stuck with something? How might I be able to shake that up? How might I be able to look at this from a different perspective? What's the most radical way that I might approach this? Even if we troubleshoot something and do some brainstorming and we realize, like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to do that because I don't like the consequences. I find that it's a useful activity when we feel stuck to like write down all the different things that we could approach the situation with, all the different solutions, different things that we could do. Now, we might not choose to take all of those. Like if you feel really stuck in a job, you might choose not to quit and just say, I'm done with this and I'm just going to trust that something new falls in my path. You might choose to get your ducks in a row and to look at, how do I find something that is maybe more in alignment with me, or how do I make a longer term exit plan to move into better work? But I do think it's instructive to at least write down, well, I could quit. I'm just choosing not to because I don't want the consequences that would come to me. And to just kind of play with some mental flexibility around, what are my options? What are my choices? I just find it, again, helpful that even if we don't like those choices and so we choose to be where we're at, it's good to remind ourselves sometimes that there are other ways to approach something. There's many ways of being in the world, and each of us is trying to figure out our best way of being in the world and how that feels most authentic to us. But it can be fun to play with thinking out of the box and have sort of some wild dreams around, how could I do it differently? We never know when an element of a new idea or something will spark something else within us and help us to see something through a new lens, or perhaps take a slightly different approach than how we've approached something before. So I think it is kind of fun to play with out of the box thinking, even for areas in our life that we might feel boxed in. And Aquarius season certainly supports that. We have a new moon coming up on February 9th, and that is a new moon in Aquarius. It's also called the snow moon. And new moons are always a good time to work with the energies of planting seeds, thinking about, what are we origining in our lives? What are we wanting to create? I find that the days leading up to a new moon are really good for release work and banishment and letting go and clearing out what's no longer serving us. And this idea of letting go of the old stories, letting go of things that aren't necessarily in our highest alignment, and planting the seeds and creating the new words, the new energetic grid work for the things that are going to feel supportive for us. So we have that to look forward to. And before we close today, I thought I would just share a little bit from Akashic Magic and kind of read a portion of what the record said about the month ahead. When I asked the question, is there anything else that you want us to know for February of 2024? And this is what the record said. And what I'm feeling from the records is this encouragement to maintain a relationship with cultivating presence, to take time to enjoy the view, to take time to just be and delight at the opportunity to be on this journey and to be in this human body having these experiences. This is not only a good month to take time to go within and to connect to your inner self, but it feels like a good time for looking at the world around you in a way that elicits a sense of awe and elicits a sense of inspiration. Go to places that inspire you. That is a way to beautifully work with the energy this month. It's a way to remind you that this world is filled with so much beauty. There is so much waiting to happen. That feels like a beautiful note to end this on today. Take some time this month to look up. Take some time as you might be riding the waves and kind of resting between those waves to Just notice what's going on around you. Take a little bit of time to appreciate how far you've come and appreciate where you're at on the journey. If you want to think out of the box, then learn to unbox yourself and learn to see yourself through a different lens. And for a lot of us, it is radical to see ourselves with more grace and more self compassion, to see ourselves as having already won, like having already achieved, having already found success, or whatever it is that we're working on building. Like if you want to be an innovator and be a heart rebel and see something with some kind of a different lens, then choose to see yourself with this like completely like rebellious grace that refuses to beat yourself up for what you feel like you haven't accomplished. And instead you can just see with like so much compassion and so much personal cheerleading and so much love, like look how far you've come and look at how your journey is intersecting with the world around you, and take some time to enjoy what is beautiful and what is noble and what is good and what is pure. All right. With that, we will wrap up your heart magic for today. Thank you so much for joining me for our February energy roundup. I will be back next week with a new episode. This will be a talk story time episode. So I will be sharing passages from some of my work around some sort of a theme that I've yet to decide, and telling the stories behind the writing and sharing a little bit more about how my personal journey intersects with feeling called to write about it and kind of bring these these wisdoms through, I suppose, to share with everyone. So until then, have an amazing week. Be well, be love, be you, and be magic.
You've been listening to Your Heart Magic with Dr. BethAnne Kapansky-Wright. Tune in next week for a new episode to support and empower your light.